What would you say if a cop asked you one question, you stayed quiet, and your silence got used against you in court? That can happen to you, and it has happened to people who thought saying nothing was enough. If you do not use the right words, your silence can look guilty instead of protected. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could save your freedom during a real stop. Tap like too because you need this in your head before your nerves take over. In the next few minutes, you're going to learn the 5 words that can protect your silence, the 1 sentence that blocks friendly search requests, the question that exposes whether you're actually free to go, and the line that shuts down questioning when things get serious. Let me show you exactly how this works in the real world, not in movie scenes, not in internet myths, and not in fake tough guy talk. You're going to hear the exact quotes you can memorize tonight. You're also going to learn why the wrong answer can turn a warning into handcuffs. Most people have no idea that the biggest mistake is not always talking too much. Sometimes it's staying silent the wrong way, and that's the trap. You think you're protecting yourself, but you never actually told the officer what right you were using. That gap can cost you. When a stop starts, your brain goes fast and your mouth gets sloppy. You want the officer to like you. You want the moment over. So you start explaining, you start joking, you start denying things nobody even proved, or you go fully quiet and hope that silence alone protects you. Here's the reality. Both mistakes can hurt you. If you talk too much, you give details they can test, twist, or compare later. If you say nothing at all without clearly invoking your right, you may not get the protection you think you have. That's why you need short, calm, repeatable lines. You still give your license, registration, and insurance if your state requires it. You still obey lawful orders like stepping out of the car. But you stop feeding the investigation with free words. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings, and you need to know where the line is before your next stop. Listen closely because this is critical. The first line you need is the one your title came for. Here's exactly what you say. I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights, word for word. Memorize that line. Those 5 words matter because they do something silence alone may not do. They make your choice clear. They tell the officer, the camera, and later the court that you are not just nervous, not confused, and not frozen. You are actively using your right not to give self-incriminating answers. You use that line when the questions move past basic traffic stuff and into phishing. Questions like, where are you coming from? Where are you going? Whose bag is that? Why are you shaking? Have you been drinking? Do you have anything illegal in the car? If answering could hurt you, that is the moment. You stay calm, you keep your hands visible, you do not argue, you do not lecture, you do not add extra words. You just say, I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. A lot of people think staying quiet is enough. In some situations, it is not. In Salinas, Texas, the court allowed silence to be used because the person did not clearly invoke the privilege. In Berghuis v. Thompkins, the court said your right to remain silent must be invoked clearly. In plain English, if you want the protection, you need to say you want the protection. That is why this line is so powerful for you. Bad way. Most drivers say, I don't know what you're talking about, or they just stare at the dashboard. Then the officer keeps asking, and later your silence or your messy answers can be framed as suspicious. Good way. Smart drivers say, I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights. Then the record shows you clearly used your right, and you stop giving the officer free material to work with. Watch what happens when you use the short line instead of a speech. The officer has less room to play word games with you. There is less for a prosecutor to point at later. There is less for your own nerves to mess up. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it is simple, clear, and hard to misunderstand. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection when questions shift from traffic to investigation. And no, you are not being rude. You are not making it worse by calmly invoking a right. This is 100% legal. You are not resisting. You are not interfering. You are using a constitutional shield in a respectful way. If the officer keeps talking, you do not get baited. If the officer acts offended, you do not backtrack. You can repeat the line once more if needed, then you stop. The whole goal here is not to win an argument on the roadside. Your goal is to protect your future self. Your job is to get through the encounter without donating evidence from your own mouth. If you remember only one thing from this video, make it those 5 words. I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights. Have you ever had an officer ask you questions that had nothing to do with the reason you were stopped? Drop a comment below because once you see this pattern, you'll never unsee it. The second line you need protects your car, your bags, and your personal space. Here's exactly what you say. I do not consent to any searches. Word for word. Memorize that line too. You use it when an officer says, you don't mind if I take a quick look, right? Or if you've got nothing to hide, why not let me search? Or just open the trunk and we'll get you out of here. You are not required to make their job easier by volunteering access. Here's the reality. A huge number of searches happen because drivers hand over permission for free, not because the officer had a warrant, not because the officer had enough evidence, Not because the law forced it, because the driver said yes. And once you consent, you create a whole new problem for yourself. Even if you think there is nothing in the car, you may forget what a friend left behind, what is in a jacket pocket, what is in a shared center console, or how a harmless item can get read in the worst possible way. Bad way. Most drivers say, sure, go ahead, because they want to look cooperative. Then the officer searches everything you just opened up by consent, and you lose a key argument later. Good way. Smart drivers say, I do not consent to any searches. Then you make it clear you never gave permission and your rights stay preserved. That line matters even if the officer searches anyway. You heard me right. Sometimes they will search anyway because they claim another reason. Maybe they say they saw something in plain view. Maybe they say they smell something. Maybe they say they have probable cause. Your job is not to physically stop them. Your job is to make your refusal clear on the record. Former police officers have confirmed this works because a clear refusal changes how the encounter is documented and how the case is fought later. You do not say it angrily. You do not reach for anything. You do not block the search with your body. You simply say, I do not consent to any searches. Then you stay still. If they keep going, you do not help. You do not unlock extra compartments. You do not explain where things are. You do not answer follow-up questions. This also protects you from a common trick. The officer makes the request sound tiny. Just a quick look. Just your trunk. Just this bag. But once you open the door to one search, you lose control fast. That is why your answer must be clean and immediate. And let me say this clearly for you. Refusing consent does not make you guilty. It does not magically give them a right they did not already have. This is 100% legal. Your refusal cannot create probable cause by itself. So if you feel pressure to say yes because you do not want to look suspicious, remember this. Your rights do not disappear just because someone in uniform asks in a calm voice. The third line is the one that tells you whether the stop is still a stop or has turned into a fishing trip. You look at the officer and say this, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Those exact words. Say them calmly. Say them only when the traffic part appears done or when you are in a street encounter and you need clarity. If your license is back, your ticket or warning is handled, and the officer suddenly keeps chatting, this question matters. Why does this line work for you? Because it forces a fork in the road. If the officer says you are free to leave, then you leave. If the officer says you are being detained, then the officer is owning that continued detention. That matters because police cannot stretch a traffic stop forever just to go fishing. In Rodriguez v. United States, the Supreme Court said a stop cannot be prolonged beyond the time needed for the traffic mission unless there is separate legal reason. In simple English, they cannot turn your busted taillight into a never-ending investigation just because they feel curious. Bad way. Most drivers say, are we good? Or can I go now? Then the officer keeps the conversation loose and vague, and you may keep standing there talking yourself into more trouble. Good way. Smart drivers say, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Then the officer has to choose, and you get a clear record of what is happening. Watch what happens when you ask the right question instead of the soft question. The whole energy changes. Suddenly, the officer has to make the stop make sense. Suddenly, the friendly chat has a legal edge to it. That does not mean you become rude. It means you stop drifting in a gray zone where people volunteer information because they do not know whether they can walk away. Now, a warning for you. Do not use this line as a magic spell 5 seconds into a lawful traffic stop while the officer is still checking your documents. That is not what it is for. Use it when the stop should be ending or when you are in a non-custodial encounter and need clarity. If the officer says you are still detained, do not debate Roadside Law School. Go back to the first tactic. I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights. Then stay calm. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings too. Your goal is to pin down the status of the encounter. Are you free or are you seized? That answer changes everything you do next. And if you are free, your next move is simple. You leave, not slowly, not with extra jokes, not with one last explanation. You leave. Most viewers already clicked away. If you're still here, you're already ahead of almost every driver on the road. Drop a comment saying, I'm still here, because the next part is where people either save themselves or bury themselves. The fourth line is for the moment your risk jumps. Maybe you are in cuffs. Maybe you are at the station. Maybe the officer says you are under arrest. Maybe questioning keeps going after things get serious. Here's exactly what you say. I want a lawyer. Short. Clear. Direct. You can also say, I want a lawyer now. Both work better than the vague stuff people blurt when they panic. This matters because half requests can fail you. Maybe I should talk to someone. That is weak. Do you think I need a lawyer? That is weak. I guess I might want an attorney. That is weak. In Davis v. United States, the Supreme Court said police do not have to stop questioning when your request for a lawyer is unclear. In plain English, if you want the protection, you need to ask clearly. Bad way, most drivers say maybe I should get a lawyer because they are scared and unsure. Then questioning can continue because the request was fuzzy. Good way, smart drivers say, I want a lawyer. Then the request is clear and your position is much stronger. Miranda v. Arizona is the big case you already know by name. It says that when you are in custody and being questioned, you must be warned about your right to remain silent and your right to an attorney. But here is the part people miss. Those rights protect you best when you use them clearly. Just hearing the warning is not the same as invoking it. That is why this short sentence matters so much for you. And yes, you can pair this with your first line. I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights. I want a lawyer. That is clean. That is strong. That is hard to twist. You are not confessing. You are not explaining. You are not trying to outsmart trained questioners with your own words. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection once the encounter becomes custodial. Your lawyer's job is to speak for you. Your job is to stop making the case easier for the other side. If you keep talking after you ask for a lawyer, you can undercut your own protection. So once you say it, mean it, then stop. Let's lock the law into simple English so you can actually use it. Salinas v. Texas teaches you that silence by itself may not protect you if you never clearly invoke the Fifth. Berghuis v. Thompkins teaches you that police may keep questioning if you never clearly say you are using your right to remain silent, and that talking later can count as a waiver. Davis v. United States teaches you that a fuzzy lawyer request is not enough. If you want counsel, you must ask clearly. Rodriguez v. United States teaches you that a traffic stop cannot be dragged out beyond its mission without a separate legal reason. And Miranda v. Arizona teaches you that custody plus questioning triggers your right to remain silent and to have a lawyer. Put all that together and your playbook gets simple. If questioning becomes risky, you clearly invoke your rights. If they ask to search, you clearly refuse consent. If the stop seems over but the talking keeps going, you clearly ask whether you are detained or free to leave. If you are in custody and questioning continues, you clearly ask for a lawyer. That is the pattern. Clarity protects you, vagueness hurts you, long speeches hurt you, calm, short lines help you. Now let me show you exactly how this sounds in a real stop. You are driving home at night, you get pulled over for a rolling stop. The officer walks up, you hand over your license, registration, and insurance. So far, no problem. Then the officer asks where you are coming from, why you are nervous, and whether there is anything illegal in the car.
Wrong way, you start rambling. You say you are coming from your cousin's place. No, wait, your friend's place. You laugh, you explain the shaking. You deny drugs before drugs were even mentioned. Then the officer asks to search. You say, sure, I've got nothing to hide. A few minutes later, the trunk is open, your bags are out, and now every random item in your car is getting a suspicious story built around it. Then your warning ticket is ready, but the officer keeps chatting, and you keep standing there answering. The stop grows legs.
Right way. You hand over the required documents and stay polite. When the questions shift, you say, I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights. If the officer asks to search, you say, I do not consent to any searches. If the warning is finished and the officer keeps probing, you say, am I being detained or am I free to leave? If the answer is free to leave, you leave. If the answer is detained and questioning keeps going after arrest or custody, you say, I want a lawyer. Bad way. Most drivers say, I'm just trying to cooperate and keep talking. Then the officer gets fresh details, fresh consent, and more time. Good way. Smart drivers say, I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights, I do not consent to any searches, and am I being detained or am I free to leave? Then you stop feeding the stop, and your position gets much safer. That is the difference. You are not trying to beat the police in a debate. You are trying to avoid giving away your case for free. Your calm matters, your tone matters, your clarity matters, and your timing matters. If you remember the script, you lower the chance that your own mouth becomes the strongest evidence against you. Next week, I'm revealing what to say when an officer claims they smell weed from your car. Subscribe right now so you don't miss it, because that line gets used on drivers every single day, and your response can change the whole stop. Here's your quick recap so you can lock this into your memory tonight. First, if questioning turns risky, you say, I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights. Second, if they ask to search, you say, I do not consent to any searches. Third, if the stop should be over, you say, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Fourth, if you are in custody and they keep pushing, you say, I want a lawyer. Here's the reality. Your best protection is not being louder, it is being clearer, short lines, calm voice, no extra talking. Hit subscribe so you catch that next video on the weed smell claim. Smash like if this helped you protect your rights before you need them. And drop a comment telling me which line you're going to memorize first. Stay safe, stay calm, and protect your future self.